Well, good afternoon. Hi, I'm Mike Haggerty, and I'm here with Mike Clayton. And we've got some other folks here to join us today. Really excited to have everybody here with our Heads Up podcast, another edition. Um, and these guys that are joining us today, guys, feel special in that this is, as Mike just informed me, this is year 2, edition number 1. So we've made it past that first year mark with our Heads Up podcast, which I know that a lot of podcasts don't make it that far for various reasons, but we're really excited. And you guys are the first ones on year number 2. So thanks for joining us. We have Angel, Cejudo, Eric Larkin, and ringleader Lee Pritts, who is also on our National Wrestling Coaches Council with USA Wrestling. So, guys, welcome.
Thanks for having us, Mike. Mike, appreciate it. Looking forward to rolling with you guys.
Mike, why don't you tee this thing up? Why don't you hit the first softball? Go ahead, buddy.
You know, Lee, this is what's great. Lee's being on our National Coaches Council, which I don't know, as a Division I coach and everything that's going on, and family man and all that you do, to be on our Coaches Council and to be as active and to serve as much as you do, we just appreciate that, first of all. And we were talking about getting some guests, and boy, you jumped in. You're like, hey, I've got a couple of folks down here that we need to talk to, and we need to get their information out and share it. So I just wanted to say thanks to you for knowing the people in your area that are doing great things and helping us share that with our coaches. That's what this is all about. And so thanks for helping us.
No, I appreciate that. And it's an honor to be part of the, Coaches Council. And I remember when Haggerty threw it out to me and Zach called me up and said, you want to do this? I said, absolutely. And, any way I can be a part of it and help this sport that's given me everything is an honor. So thank you.
Now, very cool. And how Eric and Angel, just so tickled. We try to do a little bit of prep work, even though we know most of your key facts. But how cool to have you guys on the call. What's going on with you guys right now?
Right now, we have practice at 12:30 today. Just kind of game planning for our practice. We just had a big weekend. We had a group of kids that wrestled out at a college open, some high school kids. We had the Tulsa championships with a group of 25, and we had the middle school championships. We had about 25 kids there. We have 75 kids at our school, and everybody wrestles here. We're accredited, Valiant College Preparatory. Angel's the head coach. I'm an assistant coach. And we're in the room every day grinding. And after this weekend, we came back with a game plan to fix little things that we saw where we might have been exposed, and we just do that on a weekly basis.
Sure. How tough is it coming back from a big event to kind of prep and plan that next I don't know, week or two to kind of get ready for the next thing?
To be honest, it's fun. It's coming back and sitting down as a group of coaches and game planning for the week. It's a lot of fun. We get excited to do it, and the kids that we have they trust us. They're bought in, and whatever we bring to the table, whatever we go over, they're on board, and we just work through it. That's pretty much our week in the wrestling room.
I'm going to steal a Frank Molinaro term here and say, he calls people like us wrestling heads. Guys that just live it all day, every day. Such a Jersey thing, right? Wrestling heads. And these two guys here, and their whole staff and everyone surrounding their wrestling heads. And they're thinking about it 24/7, and it's not just how can we make our program better. It's how can we make the state better? How can we make the sport better? And it's growing the sport, and it's really cool to be a part of from a distance.
And this doesn't just happen on one level. We're talking about everything from first year wrestlers with dad in the corner with no experience through what you guys are doing, which is building a big time national program where kids can get out and get that kind of that access. So Angel, I think what was interesting was, you've talked about how going to the Olympic Training Center gave you access to coaching, to resources, to other competition. How does that influence your coaching now? Because that seems to be that's what you guys are doing. You're providing elite resources to kids who want to be training at that level?
I was fortunate enough to be at the Olympic Training Center and be under a lot of great coaches, from Sergey Beloglazov to Kevin Jackson to Terry Brangi and so on and so forth. I think, I may not have the credentials as an athlete, but I was able to acquire the knowledge that they've had. So one thing that I've, tried to do is I knew from a young age I wanted to coach. That's just something that was in me. Where being in high school, a kid would ask me a question, I was really excited to help. The opposite with my brother Henry. A kid would ask him about a technique, and Henry would tell him, "Hey, I'm still training. I'll help you after I'm done." So he knew what his path was compared to mine. And I think being able to share the knowledge that I've acquired through the years, and I had knowledge, but a lot of these coaches have wisdom. And one thing that I always searched for was wisdom from the highest levels of coaches. And something that always blew my mind was a lot of these coaches did not push even their own kids to wrestle. And it was always their path. And I would always ask Sergey, "How do you guys do it in Russia?" And I would ask Kevin, and I would ask Terry, and they all got their input. So one thing that we try to do here is change the minds of our old way of thinking about wrestling. So I think not only is it technique, because technique, you can learn it the wrong way or the right way, and you're still going to be successful if you do it long enough and you do it tough enough, right? So I think it's more of the process and believing in the system that we've created here to be successful. And I think these kids have bought in, and Eric has bought in, and it's very hard because we don't focus too much on at least us as coaches, and it's taken a while, about the winning. As a matter of fact, we don't even worry about the finish. We worry about positioning, what makes everything work. And I think one thing Terry would always talk about is doing the small things all the time. And I think we have broken down our system that way.
How do you do that? And I'm sorry, Doug, I don't want to jump in. How do you focus on the small things over and over and get that buy-in? How does that become the culture, the process, the fun, right? You said, "Hey, we're going to break down some video. We're going to figure out what we want to do." Where does that come from?
Well, you know what? One thing that when I started wrestling Club called Olympus out in my North Scottsdale, and I was the only one, because I was the only one that believed in this, right? I come into a program, everyone's excited. Angel's back in his hometown. We're going to do a lot of great things. Well, everybody flooded to my club, including all of Eric's boys, Thoroughbred and Sunkiss, and they are all like, "Oh, we got this high level coaching." Now they realized after a couple months that I took my time with them, and I would tell the parents and I'd tell the kids, "Don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. We're going to be okay." And a lot of it was Sergey. I would ask him questions about the Russian system, and he would tell me, "Oh, you got to have fun, play games, maybe this, maybe that, sauna." He always talk about sauna. So it was hard to change the minds of the American style of wrestling, right? We want everything fast. Fast food, you want it in under 2 minutes. We want that instant gratification. But I had success early, but then what started to happen is parents could not stay with me long term, at least not everybody, so they leave. Well, when Eric gave me a call about this program, this vision that he had, and he wanted me to be the head coach, I needed somebody to believe, and I told him this, we're going to take our time, and you have to believe in what I bring to the table. It's going to be tough. Kids are not going to be sprinting every day. Our warm-up's going to start with our joint, our ankles to our knees, the whole Russian Cuban system. It's not going to be conditioning right out of the gate. This is what we have been taught. I needed somebody to believe, and I think we just meshed very well together. So with Eric, I needed parents to believe, and Eric had the big following. They call Eric Larkin the Golden Boy of Arizona. So he had the following, and I had some tough kids. And when he came up with this, at first, same thing with me, I had to buy into what his vision was. And at first, I didn't see it. He's telling me this program, and we're going to do this private school. And I'm like, "Eric, why don't we go charter? Why don't we just go to a public school and we'll work together? And he's like, no, this is what I see. I coach at Division I. I saw the national prep. We could do something greater. So it took both of us to buy into each other's vision. And even, you know, it was hard for him, even as a coach, where I do things differently when it comes to training and even technique. I get, even to this point, you know, I get pushback from parents, from even other coaches that I bring in, and even from Eric. And, you know, he could tell you this, but even his kids were like, what are we doing? I mean, they were brought up under Eric for so long, and it even took him. I didn't even know this till like 2 years ago. I'm like, what? They didn't believe in what I was doing? You know, Eric has done a great job of keeping me out of because I get really, when I feel, how can I say it? Like, we take things like personal. Like, what are you talking about? I've been training under Kevin and Sergey, and Kevin, you're going to tell me I don't know what I'm doing? So I think Eric has done a great job of keeping me. Your job is to be in the room. Let me handle the rest. I mean, he could tell you that the pushback that he got from his group, I'm glad he didn't tell me the first month, because I would have been like, then I'm out of here. You know, and he told me later on that these guys weren't too sure of what I was doing. But it took a lot of faith, changing the minds. And we're having success. And even now, people, you know, we get a lot of pushback. And I'm okay as long as I have somebody that supports what we're doing, like Eric, like myself, and Mike, Douglas, and everybody here at Valiant. We're going to be successful. That's what I believe.
Angel, specifically, you mentioned that you talked about the warm-ups being different, maybe that you are operating at a different pace with your athletes than maybe some other clubs or programs out there. But more specifically, what is it that anybody would challenge you in regards to your system? What's different for coaches to take away? If you were to say something addressing a group of coaches, what would you tell them? What's different about what you're doing?
So what I'm doing differently. So one thing that, you know, when you first, the American way of wrestling, and that's what I was brought on, which was, you got to be, I mean, you have to be tough. If you're wrestling, you're tough. I don't care if you're from the worst neighborhoods to the nicest neighborhoods. When you're in the room and you're willing to go through the grind, you're a tough kid, right? The biggest thing for me is that I don't criticize, condemn, or complain about any of my kids. And here's the thing. I learned that through Terry Brands. Everyone looks at Terry as this tyrant. He's going to kill you in the room. He's going to yell at you. And that's not true. He motivates you, and horse and hammer and killer, dude, you know. And I realize now I don't get as crazy as Terry, but one thing I do is I encourage them to make mistakes. So what most people are used to doing with the kid or an athlete or a parent coach, they will get upset with their kid when they make a mistake. Where I'm the opposite. I encourage them to continue to make mistakes. The reason why, if a kid's getting yelled at home, at school, and they come to the restroom and I yell at them, we'll wait till they're about 15, 16 years old. When they start liking girls, they're going to quit the sport. So my biggest thing is to failing in the room. It's the greatest thing that can happen. I don't teach kids how to be robots. I want them to be creative. Now, there's certain things that I don't bring my principles that I have in wrestling. My sprawl, my front headlock, a certain way I do things, and my finishes are a certain way. We're going to spend 80% of our time doing it that way. Then you can be creative with other things. But them having the freedom to just go out there and wrestle. A lot of our kids, if you ever come to our room, which I encourage you guys to be here, or anybody, you'll see that our kids cannot wait to be at practice. They love being in our room. We have created an environment, a learning environment. It is competitive, but it's in a different way. They love to learn. And my biggest thing with parents and coaching is taking our time, making sure that we're doing the right things, and for the kids to enjoy what they're doing. It's very hard, right? It's tough for a parent or a coach to understand that. And if it's not with them, find a program that will do that for you. So what I encourage for coaches is to do some research. Talk to the greats. Talk to Kevin. Talk to Terry. We had Ben Askren in here yesterday and today, and I asked him questions. Look for knowledge, but when they give it to you, follow it. And that's the hardest thing to do, because we have just been programmed a certain way. To change that mindset, very tough. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. I could do this all day about coaching.
No,
but
heaven forbid you teach a sprawl. Heaven forbid you teach a sprawl in today's world of everybody jumping over the top and grabbing ankles and all of that good stuff. But that's a whole show in itself, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's different. I mean, the way we snap, the way we sprawl. I mean, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I tell my kids to be on their toes, move to the right or move to the left, or most coaches will tell you go to your laces and push away. And I get so much fight. But if you watch my wrestlers, they hardly get taken down. So front cover, I'll give you another example, front cover. And then actually we talked about this last week. I don't want my kids to have short arms and be in front of an opponent. I want a person to get off to the side, take a lock, and be off. So it's just, I guess.
I wrestled short arms in the armpits, and I wrestled from here, and he's off to the side. And it took me a little bit, but my kids bought in. I told them to believe in it, and they trusted them, and they score there every single time. So
I think the biggest thing that I've taken is I'm not worried if my kids win with speed and power and raw toughness, then I'm not doing my job. I want my kids to understand wrestling and be in the uncomfortable positions that really matter. And I look about control. What makes a position work? It's control if it's not speed and power. Because if you're winning with speed and power, when you get to the level where Coach Pritts is at, all that time, do you know how you beat speed? Is with timing. You know how you beat power is with speed. I mean, there's so many ways you can. Kids just start the 1%ers become smaller and smaller, and speed and power at that level, everybody has it. So what makes a single leg work? My shoulder position stays at the hip, my hand stays at the knee, and get comfortable there and spend hours and hours there over reps. I believe in time spent in a position than 1,000 reps when you're going to do them hard, fast, and do them wrong.
So I'm a high school stud, and I've been getting by on power and speed, right? And then I get a chance to wrestle at Arizona State. Now, Lee, you've got me. How hard is it for you to change my mindset? Because you know what? I'm 132-6 doing it my way. So it's pretty hard for you to tell me I'm wrong, right?
No, I'll use a perfect example, and it came from, Angel trained was Brandon Courtney. Brandon Courtney came in and, he didn't have the success he wanted right away, and he might be the fastest guy, in NCAA wrestling. You know what I mean? His speed's out of control. And so, and we had to teach him some positions, we had to get through some positions, and, he spent so much time taking people down and cutting them, and that his mat game wasn't great. He was so fast, his scrambling wasn't great. He was so fast that I don't know if anyone ever shot on him in high school. So his defense wasn't great, and no problem. It was the biggest thing was controlling his brain when things weren't going right, because he was trying to solve all of his problems with speed. And we did exactly what Angel said, is we started working on positions, focusing on positions, getting to positions. And it took a little time, but once he started understanding the sport at a higher level, he like you said, he punched himself in the finals last year at the NCAA tournament. So
positions. Can you go into a little bit more? What you mean getting to positions? How as a coach do we teach that? What does that look like?
I think it's understanding the feel of, and I probably learned this from Ben Askren, when I was coaching him. I don't know if maybe he coached me, but seriously, because I remember watching Ben and everyone thinks he's, this funky guy. He wasn't that funky. That stuff, I was like, he can't drill that stuff. That's all field. No, he practiced and drilled all those areas. He would know if a guy gets in, or if he gets in on a leg, the guy can do A, B, and C. And if he does A, he's going to go to option 1 or 2. If the guy does B, he has 2 options from there. If the guy goes C, he has 2 options from there. So, it would be building blocks. And that's pretty much the same thing Angel was talking about, was spending times in those positions and understanding what they can do from each of those positions and then how they build off each other. Is that basically what you're saying, Angel?
Yeah.
Yeah, sparring in those positions, being a good partner, giving them different looks. So that plays a big factor. Who you're training with and what they're doing to you, and making you have to go to option A, option B, option C. Ben was in here yesterday, and exactly what Lee just said. That's kind of how he broke down what he was showing yesterday. If they do this, you do this. If they do this, you do this. And we spent time, and it was only one position, but all these different options, and we spent 2 hours on a bottom position.
And could have spent 20 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, you mentioned sparring in these positions. So what I'm hearing is that, one, Lee, we're teaching them how to get to these positions, and Eric, you're getting them to feel in these positions, to spar. Can you talk a little bit about sparring? Because I think a lot of coaches, they struggle. They're like, sparring, that's just live, right? But it's not quite.
It's not quite live. It's maybe 70%, but it's giving your partner a different feel if you can each time. Like, let's just get it on a high crotch. I'm gonna work on bringing your head on inside that time. Then you're gonna work on finishing there. I'm gonna put all my weight. I'm gonna stuff head. I'm gonna square my hips. Just wrestling through those positions at not 100%, but close to it. So you're getting that realistic feel, and you're not just letting the guy in on a high crotch, letting him finish, because that's not realistic when you get in a match. So a lot of our practices, I think we're successful, is because of the way Angel runs our practices. We spar a lot. I mean, we get in on a position, we'll spend 2 hours, 3 hours on that position, and then we'll spar in there. If that answers your question.
And I'll go off you, Eric. We do the same at ASU. Is there's a time for repetition drilling, and when you're developing technique. But once you get your, and there's stages to it, right? You're learning the technique, and it goes through repetition drilling, and then from there it turns into sparring. Because that's where it becomes realistic, right? And I can tell you, at this point, at this point in the season, we're not doing a lot of repetition drilling. We're doing a heck of a lot more sparring and feel.
Yep.
Eric, and I have a question for either you or Angel or both. Let's just play the what if game. What if I am a parent in your area and I have a son or a daughter who is a sort of middle of the road, had some success, but maybe not a lot of success in this sport. But I'm interested in trying to provide for my son or daughter more opportunities in the sport. And so I come to you. What would you tell them about, or what would you tell me about your club and what you feel like it could provide for my son or daughter?
Okay, so what I do, usually what I like to do is, first of all, I would tell them what we're about. Second, I would tell them, I encourage, this is kind of crazy, I'd encourage them to go and check out other clubs, right? Exhaust everything. Always find the coach that best fits you. If you like what you see here, okay, what we bring to the table when it comes to wrestling is just getting them to love the sport. Where they're at, where are they at? What are the kids' goals? Not the parents. How much did the kids love wrestling? And how much is the parent involved? And it's sometimes it's coaching the parents. Let's just say they have the parent is that dad that wants it more than the kid. So we would have to educate the parent on how we do things here. And then with the kid, help him reach his goals. There's been times where I like to ask kids what are their goals and why they love wrestling. And let's build on that. And there's kids that just, like me and my brother came, not the best neighborhood and not the, we just came from a broken home. And for us, it was a way out. But that's not for everybody. So we got to find out and get down to why this kid's wrestling or why the parent's wrestling. Sometimes he was a wrestler, the parent or the uncle or the brother, and they got him into the sport. My job, I would tell them, is to keep them in the sport. And as they get a little older, middle school, I just want them to stay here. As they get a little older, they're going to find a love for it, and we're going to build on their goals. That's kind of where I'm at there.
Yeah,
I was
same.
talking to Coach just the other day, and he was saying that his assistant was about to kind of jump on a kid and kind of chew him a little bit. He just wasn't getting what he wanted from that athlete. And the head coach said, hey, come here a sec. Kind of took him out in the hall and said, I don't know if you know this, but this athlete's parent looked at him in the face as they were doing a lethal dose of heroin and said, I'm doing this because it's your fault.
Jesus.
So
Whoa.
you don't know where these kids are coming from when they're in your practice room. And I really appreciate what you said. You're like, I'm not here to I'm not here to judge these kids in this moment. I'm here to help them. I'm here to understand what they're dealing with when they walk into this wrestling room, because most kids aren't walking into the wrestling room to piss us off or to not do what they are supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So, how big? You guys are building, and this is what I love about it too. You guys are very successful, but you're building character in our young people, and that's what I love. That's where we measure success. As a big whole, is what you're doing for the character of these kids. So I appreciate that a lot.
I have the next question is probably for our group here more than just singling out either Eric or Angel, but certainly Lee, you've been around the block a lot. Mike, in your role as manager of our coaches education program, there's some knowledge here that maybe I feel is important to ask this question in regards to the relationship of club wrestling and the school system wrestling in our country. And how do we continue to grow and better those relationships? Because at some places, I've seen some very adversarial relationships when it comes to both the clubs and the schools, with coaches, with parents, and basically philosophical differences. What is it that we could do? And from your perspective, what have you guys seen in that you guys are coaching at a high level club? Lee, you being at a high level university at Arizona State, help us out with what we need to do to get the message across that there's a world that we can all exist in and make this better.
I'll jump in on that. I've been trying for years here, because I just, I think the world of, Larkin Larkin had Thoroughbred, right? He was over at Thoroughbred, and, Angel was over up at Fight Ready with Olympus and, running his stuff. And we had Sunkiss, the kids club. And it was so funny. I don't even know if I should say this on air, but I don't care anymore. It's so funny I would go to Thoroughbred for some reason, what Victoria Anthony would be like, hey, I'm going to Thoroughbred to wrestle high school. You come over tonight. So I'd go over with Vicky, and I'd walk in, and I'd have 4 parents that are Sunkiss kids' parents come. Oh yeah, we don't normally come here. It was just, I don't care. I said, I don't care. Good. You're learning from Larkin. He's a Sun Devil. He's awesome. Great. Or whatever. And then, the next week it would, Kelsey Campbell, hey, I'm going over to, up to Angels and wrestling with his kid. Okay, can you come? And I'd show up, and there would be, 3 other parents. Oh, hey, we don't normally come here. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. It's good. Angel's awesome. I come up here to learn from Angel too. I'm like, it's great, guys. You have to spread, you have to spread yourself out and learn from everyone. What's the first thing Angel talks about? He learned from Bela Glazov. He learned from KJ. He learned from Terry. He wasn't like, I have to be trained by only this guy. I think it's important to you got to have your base guy, your one person that really knows you and understands you and learns you as a person. But I think it's good to go other places and have different partners. And, the people that are doing that, look, you go into Pennsylvania and you have, I see it all the time. I'll go into a Pennsylvania room and there's kids from all over the place in there, state champs working out with state champs. And it's why they are typically not typically, they're the best state hands down to recruit out of, and that happens because those guys are all working out together. You go into a room in the Whitfield and those guys they're from all over the place. They're not just from that high school. They're from all over the place, and nobody's looking for credit. No one's looking for credit. They're just looking for knowledge.
I think that's excellent. Opinion. Yeah, that's excellent, Lee.
And we're going to keep talking about knowledge after a message from the Marine Corps.
Searching for meaning in a relentless world, always connected, but somehow alone, trapped by illusion. We offer another path, where the battle to belong begins. Awakened by a calling, united by the cause you fight for. No one can take away what it means to be among the few, the proud, the Marines.
That's the great thing about our group. We have different people in here every week, almost every day. I mean, Henry drops in, Askren. We went out and traded with Cormier. We try to gain, even if it's one technique or one bit of knowledge from one group, and we'll bring it back and we'll use it. We're very open-minded. I think that's what coaches need to do is be open-minded and always try to learn, no matter what age you are, how old you are. I think you always need to be learning and evolving. This sport evolves, has changed over the past 10 years, over the past 20 years. I think you just always need to evolve with the sport and not be closed-minded. And our group does a very good job of doing that. And that makes a big difference for us.
What's the first step? How do I go if maybe I haven't been very open-minded and I'm listening to you, and you won the Hodge Trophy, so I would imagine that there's some credibility that we could throw there. So if I'm listening to this and I've been closed-minded and I've said, I don't want to give up control, I don't want to give up my little piece of power, how do I change? How do I take that first step to opening up? What's a good way to get me out of my comfort zone, but still help me feel safe?
Ooh,
I don't know.
Sorry.
That's heavy, man. I can tell you I said this on another podcast is I probably had to go back and apologize to everyone I coached in my first 10 years of coaching. I gave everything I had. I just didn't have any idea what I was doing. I was super passionate about it, right? But I wasn't growing. I wasn't growing, and I kept wanting to get better, and I wasn't where I wanted to be, and so I think it was from, and we were having success. I was actually having success as a coach, but I wasn't growing in the sport. And I just had to look inside, and I finally just said, I got to grow. And I was still learning technique, but I don't think I was becoming a better coach at the time. I was just kind of flatlined, and I had one way to do it. And every kid's different, You can't coach a Don Bradley the same way you coach a Ben Askren, and the same way you coach a Mark Bader and guys in my early and a Jeremy Spates. They're all different, but I wasn't probably coaching those guys different at the time. Maybe a little bit, but not what I should have been doing, And so I had to learn how to grow and how to be a chameleon a little bit as far as working with each guy. And so you say, give up that power. It's not giving up the power. It's, you're basically empowering yourself by growing.
You know, Lee, I know a few of those folks that you were talking about, and I can certainly tell you that even through the mistakes, they all still love you and think you're the best, man. So it's all good. You know, Mike, in answering your question, I would also add the first step. The very first step is I think you have to ask yourself, who are you in it for? I think that's that's the baseline, is like, if you're in it for yourself and if you're in it to promote yourself through the coaching ranks, it's going to be a long road to haul. But if you're truly in it, and I think that that's tough, and some guys struggle to handle that as a coach, that you are a facilitator, and that's what I like about what, you know, Angel and Eric, what you guys are doing. You're facilitating other programs. You're building these guys to go out and do future great things, right? So I think in the very beginning, asking yourself, you know, who are you in it for? Why are you in the game of coaching? Because if certainly there can be an ego involved, but the ego should reflect, what are you doing for other people, not necessarily about how are you growing yourself to be a better, you know, coach in a traditional term. It's more about developing people so that they can make decisions and grow themselves.
Yeah, that's what was going through my mind is what are you doing? Who are you doing it for? Also, what are your goals? If your goals is to become a state championship coach and keep doing what you're doing, congratulations. But if your goal are to, let's just say a kid needs to become wants to be more than just a state championship kid. I want to go to Division I. I want to go to the national championship. Now, you got to check what are your goals as a coach, and even the history that you've had. Have you put kids at depends, like, right? You're saying you're the best coach. Have you put those kids at the Division I level? And if you haven't done that, you're going to have to, it's a gut check, go and find the knowledge. I mean, we have so much resources. Forget about driving, you know, come to Valiant here. Go on the internet. Go on USA Wrestling. Go on Flow. Go on YouTube's my favorite thing. I'm going to change the tire on you. Go and find it and search for it. And if your goals are greater, and if your kid's goals are greater than yours, then you have to let him go. Because most coaches hey, I want to keep my kid for 3 months out of the year, but they're not willing to put in the work beyond the season. That kid needs to find another location or another place that's going to push him that way. And as a coach, they have to recognize that too. How much work are they willing to put in to help that kid reach his goals? Now, if they're not willing to put in the work, it's time to let him go somewhere else.
Even in some coaching career, in a traditional sense, you might be able at best to build a state championship team or two, but you can certainly build an unlimited number of relationships. And so there is a huge difference between, you know, if you're basing your success on those numbers of state titles or state championships for individuals, those are ultimately become limited. But there's no limit to the amount of relationships that you can build as a coach.
I have one parent that gave me a call. I mean, they're known as the Eloy boys, Valiant, Olympus, Eloy. His dad came to me asking for help, right? And his whole goal was like, look, I've been in this small town. I've noticed that when our kids are tough, but when they get into high school, they get lost. No one makes it to college. He researched. He knew himself he needed to go out and look for something great. He was doing it the same way that every other parent does, and burned his kid out at a very young age. When his kid came back to him 3 years later saying, Dad, I want to come back to wrestle, he knew he had to change. Now, I want to congratulate Lee Pritts at ASU. That kid is now will be on the roster at ASU at a high-level Division I. The kid is Emilio Yazagiri. But it took the dad failing and recognizing it before it all changed.
We got that Larkin kid, too. He's pretty good, too.
You guys heard us?
But Lee, why don't you update us a little bit on what's going on in your world? I know that, like Mike said, you're tremendously active in our coaches council. You work with the freestyle side of things. you've got your own assistant coaching role there. What's going on with you and getting ready? And we're running down this stretch. Heck, we're almost we're what, a month and a half away getting ready for the national championships.
Oh yeah. Right now, everyone's dealing, around the country dealing with COVID, right? So that's been a little bit of a challenge. And all the different rules in the different counties and rescheduling dual meets. Really a shout out to our director of operation, Todd Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he's a rock star because when we're juggling all these different moves that we have to make, he's the one taking care of this stuff. And it's allowing us to continue to coach, and it's allowing us to continue, not only we're able to coach the ASU side, but it's also putting us over with Sunkist that are senior level and with our people we have in there. They're getting ready to leave for Russia. I think tomorrow, a group of them, and then we'll have a group staying back. So Todd Ford being Todd Ford and taking care of all of our, travel and all of our business side of it is allowing us to coach. And so it's cool. Yeah, we have a lot going on as far, Colton Schultz is doing a split schedule. He's getting ready to go overseas right now. And, I think that's pretty amazing for him. He's been doing it since he was a freshman in college. In the middle of the season, sometimes he has to go over and get his Greco in. He has to go over and get some mat time overseas and compete in a couple of tournaments. And, so yeah, we're staying busy, man. We're staying busy.
How big of a deal, Lee, you mentioned Sunkist.
Yep.
How big of a deal is having a club like that in your state, to have those resources, how big of a deal is that for Arizona wrestling and for the people that are on this screen growing up in an environment like that?
It's everything. It's everything. It's number one, Art Martori and Kim Martori, they absolutely have an absolute passion for the sport of wrestling, and it's bigger than ASU, right? They help other colleges, they help everyone in the country, they help the world, and it's their passion for the sport is infectious. So having them in our backyard and there's an obligation to it too, right? There's an obligation to it too, which I love. When I remember walking in my first day, I pulled up on July 5th and I walked in the wrestling room. I didn't even go unload the truck. I pulled up in the U-Haul and I walked into the wrestling room and there was Melvin Douglas coaching a bunch of little kids. And I'm like, oh my God, he might be the most decorated upperweight we've ever had, over a 20-year career, right? And I was just like, this is unbelievable. And when I turned around to walk out, there was a big sign that said, hanging up, said, it was a Sunkist logo, and it said, "We are the Dream Makers." And I was like, ooh, what did I just get into? And it was awesome though. I was like excited about it. And then as I'm walking out, there was a shadow box, right? And the shadow box was like, it was tiny. It was like 8 by 11, and they could have one that's a football field, right? And there was like a couple pictures in there, and there was like Sammy Henson was in there, and there was a picture of John Smith, and Kendall Cross was in there. And there was a note from Cale Sanderson. All these people wrestled for Sunkist at some point, and Cale's I forget exactly what it said, but I know at the bottom it said, "You were right. You are the Dream Makers." And so I just like, it really hit me at that point that, man, you just jumped in and are part of something really special. Get ready. Get ready. And that's, and man, it's been an honor to be part of it.
That's awesome. It sounds like, Eric Angel, it's what you're doing. You're helping kids realize their dreams. Is that close?
Yeah. And just thinking about what Lee was just talking about, that little, I know exactly that box he's talking about. And I remember looking at it, kind of having that same feeling like, yeah, this is the place to be. I know that exact card with Cale's name at the end of it. It says, "Yeah, you guys are the Dream Makers." That's what we're trying to do. Absolutely.
It's so cool, man. Just to have people don't understand, because the state of Arizona wrestling, hasn't been in a great spot in the recent years, right? As far as producing Division I guys, maybe changing lives, right? Changing lives. The sport's changing lives, and that's great. But if we're talking the elite level, it hasn't been there, and to see there being a hard push for it right now is awesome. These guys are competing nationally and doing it at a high level, and they're changing lives. But it's changing when you start getting guys like I said. Brandon Courtney's getting his master's right now. He just graduated. At the semester, and he's got another year of eligibility, and he's going to finish with his master's. That's unbelievable. He just got student athlete of the semester. When he came in a couple years ago, if you would have sat all of us down and said, is he going to be getting his master's and be student athlete of the semester? We probably would have said, probably not. But the foundation that he got, he grew up in the Sunkist room, and then when he got to the next level, he was over there with Angel and Henry, and the foundation that he got through all that is a big reason why he's doing what he's doing now.
Angel, how do you feel when you hear that?
Oh man, it's exciting. Yeah, Brandon, probably one of the hardest working kids. Man, it's not even just besides his wrestling. That I didn't even realize that his masters. And maybe that means more to me or more than everything else that he's doing. Because I know with having just that, knowing that he's a wrestler plus he's going to school, when he's done with all this, when wrestling is over, because it will end. And sometimes some people don't realize that. He's going to be set for life. So that's exciting, man. That's
awesome,
what it's all
right?
about.
This dude was in the finals last year, and I'm proud of him. As an athlete, I'm proud of him. But the growth that he's had in life is everything.
Angel,
that's what it's about.
Pretty cool.
Angel, and Eric primarily, since we're getting a little bit long in the tooth here, but I definitely want to give you guys an opportunity, and Leah, you as well. Just tell us in your world, with everything that's going on right now, what's next for you guys? What's on your plate? What's the highest priority for you guys moving into these next few weeks or months?
Go ahead, Angel.
For me, well, man, I have changed the way I think now. For me, it's day by day now. It really is. I think maybe it's taken a lot of brands doing this to you. But I think setting the goal, which is, where Brandon's at, working day by day by day by day. I no longer look at the future. All thoughts are lie, good or bad. Staying in the present is what's most important to me now. So it's kind of hard to answer that question, but I think the next step for me is what we're doing an hour from now in practice.
Yeah,
That's
just
good enough. That's good.
I
That's
like
good
that.
for me for sure. How about you, either Lee or Eric? Either one.
I'll just kind of jump on that. Just the progression, like he's saying, just trying to get better every day in whatever area that you're working on. And that pretty much simplifies it. And you're gonna, if you have this goal at the end of the year to be a national champ, if you just take each day, each minute, and you try to do the best at that, you're gonna get closer to that goal. So that's how we look at things, and I think that's why we're successful.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm in the same boat. My wife always laughs at me, because it'll be 8:00 at night or whatever, and I'm working, and she's like, what time do you fly out tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I haven't looked at it yet. I got to finish what's
You
going on.
haven't even gotten your clothes ready.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, I gotta finish what's going on tonight. When I'm done tonight, then I'll set up tomorrow morning. And that's how it works. I'm like those guys where it's, you have the big picture, you have the goal, but you have to take care of the immediate needs, and sometimes you start looking at the big picture, the big goal, and it's a lot. It might be a lot to swallow at once, right? And I use the analogy, if you got to climb this 10,000 foot mountain, and you can start going, man, that's heavy. But if you just tell someone to keep taking one step, you can get there. But you can't get the, sometimes the 10,000 foot mountain might break people it might break people mentally, physically, emotionally, but taking one step's not that hard, and you just keep taking one step. And so that's kind of how I live my life as well,
I got to tell you, we talk about good people in the sport. There's no better people in the sport than Lee Pritts. Quick story about Lee here. I don't even know how this developed. We talk about people that would give their shirt off of their back for you. One time I was down at Columbia, and I don't know whether I was officiating or I was down there helping Coach Dom or whatever, but I get ready to leave, and Lee comes up and he hands me a pair of pants. And it's like, I have no idea why he gave me a pair of pants, but I still have those pants today. I don't know whether he outgrew them, he didn't like them, or he just figured I needed a new pair of pants. But true story, I still have those pants to this day. So Lee, thanks, brother.
Yeah, that was probably an NCAA violation.
Yeah, we'll keep it between us on the podcast, right?
Yeah. We're out of the statute of limitations. We're good.
Yeah, that was a while back, and I really don't know why you gave them to me, but I still have them and I like them, so I still.
I don't either, but hey, I appreciate the compliment, man.
You're a good dude. You're a good dude, Lee. And certainly, having Angel and Eric, you guys are fantastic, and for what you guys are doing, keep it rolling. That's amazing. It sounds like there's a lot of energy down there, and so we'll kind of keep our ears to it and keep hearing good things from you guys. Mike, I'm going to give you the last word. I know there's a lot of things happening right now with USA Wrestling. We've got a big duel, right, with Oklahoma State and Iowa, and that's going to be down in Texas. And along with that, the USA team is going to be wrestling the Iranians. I'm going to go down for that. I'm really excited. So what else is on the calendar and with Coach's Education, Mike?
Yeah, that's a big one. February 12th, Battle at the Ballpark. Right now on the Coach Education side, we're working with the Greg Strobel Leadership Academy. We're going to be presenting an award at the U.S. Open. It's going to be the Athlete Advisory Council's Leadership Award. So it's really neat to see, Jen Baldwin is one of Greg's daughters, and she is just phenomenal at making things happen for this program. And for those who don't know, the Greg Strobel Leadership Academy is going to be a program for the non-wrestling specific things that will help our senior athletes continue to expand their margin of excellence. So we're trying to say, whether it's, hey, I need a course in finance, or I need to know this, or we're going to be able to provide those kind of resources through the Greg Strobel Leadership Academy. So there's going to be a second annual fundraiser for that. It'll be February 9th through March 10th. And jump in. It's going to be really cool. Last year, Jen did a different post from her dad, Greg Strobel, every day for each of the 30 days of the fundraiser, and she'll be doing that again this year. And so, Greg Strobel is one of the all-time greats in our sport, and to be able to gain more from his wisdom through his daughter and through this leadership program, we're really excited about that. And I wanted to say, Angel, thank you. One thing you had said earlier was our room is open, and you invited us to come visit. And I want to take you up on that. I don't know when I'm going to make it down, but I'm going to come down and I'm going to hang out. And I'm going to meet you guys, because that just sounds awesome. I always say that at the end of the day, the wins, the losses, all the things that go on, this sport is about family. And Angel, I've met you a couple of times. Eric, I've probably been around, but I feel like I've got 2 more members of my family today. So I just wanted to say thank you for making me feel, like most people in wrestling do, just part of that family right away. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for everybody jumping on. I definitely look forward to visiting with everybody next time, but we'll see you guys across the wrestling circles as we move forward, and hope for all of our coaches, officials, and people out there that are supporters in the wrestling community. Thanks for joining us for this podcast, this Heads Up podcast with USA Wrestling. I'm Mike Haggerty along with Mike Clayton. So long, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, fellas.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.